Okay, good afternoon, guys. So what I'm going to be doing is I've saved, I think it's 3 parts already to this 2 weeks fives material that we needed to get through, and there was some homework that needed to be done, which we're going to quickly have a look and see how you did in terms of that. So I'm going to share screen. So what we have been specifically talking about is in terms of, just give me 2 seconds. As you can see, we are in the midst of load shedding. And this is what happens is when you don't, the environment will never be the same. We live in an ever-changing environment, and load shedding has become one of our obstacles or things that we have to navigate in our daily lives. So instead of wasting that time, I've managed to connect successfully, and I've got a good light here that I can use to actually present, and you'll be able to see the information. So we were speaking on social capital engagement in the public sphere. We've covered quite a bit of material on that. We've shown you videos. Michael Foucault in terms of power, what power means, government, civil society, relationships and governance, the role of the public sphere in democracy. There's a whole lot of information, and I'm hoping that you have covered the material where I've asked for the readings to be done in terms of the textbook. So in terms of lesson plan 26, it was developing an understanding of the public sphere and power and how it enables students to develop effective stakeholder engagement plans. So it speaks to stakeholder engagement. And when we covered it in one of the recordings this week, I think it was the last one, where we speak about the importance of stakeholder engagement, not only when you start engaging with specific stakeholders and then you leave it and then there's a crisis or something happens, there's a strike action that's taking place, and then you need to engage with trade unions, and by then it's out in the media and you've not built good stakeholder engagement. The emphasis was on why you need to build those effective stakeholder engagements. You know, in instances where you need to be able to engage with a specific stakeholder and build good relationships, your corporate social investment, corporate social responsibility we talked about, is that when you are going to support a specific community, you are not only going to, when you meet the community and you've agreed to support, the company has agreed to support that specific community, and then you go off, you give the money to the community project, and only at the end when the project is completed, or you don't even go back to actually see the project. You need to be consistently meeting, engaging, receiving reports from that stakeholder. And with corporate social investment or responsibility, what really works well is in the case where you define the terms of reference as to how you want this relationship to work. So whether you want a monthly report, and if the stakeholder or the charity, the project manager is not familiar how to put together the report, you would then outline in terms of what actually needs to go in that report. So when you receive it, you are able to sort of understand what is it that they're providing in terms of the information, which is very important. The videos that I showed you on stakeholder engagement, project management and stakeholder engagement, and then social capital. We spoke towards the tail end of our presentation on social capital and understanding what is social capital and how integral it is in today's society. So we're going to be moving on with the lesson plans till we go through the end. Tonight's recording might cover the rest of the material that we need to cover for the rest of this week. And then there will be some homework as well. So I'm going to go through, I just want to open the files quickly in terms of what was done. So I had asked, based on the Virgin Atlantic exercise, for a peer review to be done. So NEPO had to do a peer review on Mbali's presentation that I shared yesterday and went through on the screen. So I literally presented Mbali's work in terms of Virgin Atlantic presentation that she had done. And I did the same for NEPO. I took you through NEPO's presentation in Bali in terms of Virgin Atlantic. Now, one of the things that you guys did struggle with, and to get it to a point where peer review is going to be a seamless process and you're going to understand completely what it speaks to. So there is a rubric that I've given you, right? And what I've said is, in the case where you cannot have, or you don't have the opportunity to go and make additional copies, all you merely do is you create a Word document. However, when you look at each of the areas, they have got sections where you need to actually put in information and advise whether the effort was good, the effort was great. However, if you are saying that, you need to always substantiate, because if you say minimal effort, right, like I'm looking at the screen here, so what? What is minimal effort? And remember, perception is different for each one of us. Minimal effort for me can mean something completely different to NEPO and something completely different to Mbali. So just a couple of words of advice. So this is on the screen is the peer review that Mbali actually did on presentation. Mbali, thank you. I did see that you worked on it till quite late last night because the email was sent through. I am sorry about the the noise of the birds making a noise in the background, but it's quite warm, so I've still got the doors open and windows. So please excuse the birds in the background. So Mbali, yes, you did work on it quite late, and you sent it through. I think it was something like 11:30 or something at night. I'm studying for my exam and doing the lecturing and doing a whole lot of other stuff in between. So I think before we get into this, let's address the elephant in the room. Okay. We're currently not doing this face to face, but I think you're going to get the message loud and clear. And I think when we do some Teams or face to face, we're going to have a sort of a re-emphasis on what I'm going to say now. Studying is hard work. You need to sit down, and Bali, you need to do this. NEPO, you need to do this. You need to sit down and think about, what is it that you're trying to achieve from PR3? Now, these words are not giving you scolding. Please, by all means, it's not a scolding. You are not children. It is words of wisdom that I'm going to give you. And one day, maybe not a year from now, not 2 years, maybe 5, 6, even 10 years from now, you're going to remember my words. And you're going to think, what I was saying was absolutely correct in what I was saying in terms of the guidance. So as much as I am teaching you, Mbali, NEPO, I'm teaching you, I'm giving a lot of guidance along the way in terms of things that work and don't work. Now, for me, I was disappointed in terms of when I submitted. So the recordings, I'm doing them, I did them this week. I tried to get them earlier than when the lecture was supposed to happen. So that means you had a bit of lead time to work on it, start working on it. Advising me that you're unable to meet the deadline because you have other homework means that you are prioritizing PR3 over other subjects that you have, perhaps, right? That is just my personal take on it. Guys, this is what studying is all about. You need to sit and think long and hard what you put in terms of effort is what you're going to get out at the end of the day. Both Nipo and Bali, both of you didn't like when I called yesterday after the message I received saying, can you send it to me on Thursday, which is tomorrow. Please understand, Tuesday, although it was a public holiday, the college expects you, and that's why recordings were done and uploaded, and I even WhatsApped the link so that you could access it, because it meant that schoolwork was still going to happen. Now, what would have happened is that if you had submitted it on Thursday, tomorrow, which means we would have not been able to have included it in this recording in terms of feedback. Generally, if we are in class, you would have gone off for 45 minutes or an hour, worked on it, come back and presented it. Now, I'm going to ask this question, a very simple question. And, you know, the thing is, right now, Nipo and Mbali, you may not like me, and that is okay. But what if this was an exam and you had to submit the reflection, right, as a recorded presentation? You had to submit that. What would have happened? Mbali let me know this morning her Teams is not allowing her to record. I said, fine, send through the presentation, I'll do it. The whole point is that when you're presenting, it is different as to when I'm presenting it, because when you are presenting, there's additional information that you're presenting. So when you actually present it, you're getting practice. Guys, remember formative assessment 1. We are now sitting on the 22nd of March. The 6th of April is around the corner. I've emphasized this before and I'll emphasize it again. So the fact that you couldn't record it, Nipo said he couldn't, he sent a picture saying his Teams is not working. If this was an examination, guys, would you say, I can't record, I can't do this, I can't do that? We live in an age of technology, right? You know, when I had to start recording the lectures, I was told that there were some lectures I'm going to have to record. I hadn't recorded videos on Teams before. I had not opened up a YouTube channel to upload. What I did is I couldn't say I can't do this. Do you know what I did? I spent the entire night going on Google, establishing what is going wrong and why I'm not able to record a video. Secondly, how to upload to YouTube so that links are accessible. I worked through the night and I got it perfect. And now I can do it. So technology, guys, is actually a very big part of our lives. Now, you may want to skip this part and say, okay, I'm not going to listen to this woman who doesn't know anything, and I'm going to move on from this because this is a lecture of note. I need to say it. I am not negotiable when it comes to quality. You need to start learning what are you going to do in the work environment, Nipo and Mbali, when your boss gives you 5 or 10 different things that, or not your boss, you've got 5 or 10 different things that you need to get done. And your boss comes to you and say, Have you done this? Or is this going to be ready for the 2 o'clock presentation? Are you going to tell your boss, I have got this, I have got that to do, I have got that to do? In organizations today, they're looking for employees who are agile, flexible, and they are willing to go over and above what they need to do. You know, you guys are in a way, and because I'm a student, I can relate. So I'm working and I'm studying, right? Do you know when we have and we do multiple subjects like you do, even though it's part-time, we have something that's due on a certain date. Do you know there's no room for excuses for us? We've got to submit. If we don't attend 80% of our lectures, we get kicked off the program. And they tell you that straight out. So this is some food for thought. And I think I need to make mention of it because that approach yesterday was not on, guys. It was not on for me because telling me, and then also the fact that you had today, you didn't have anything before PR3. Guys, sorry about these birds. I'm really, really sorry. And I can't shut this door and I can't switch the fan on and close the door because we're in the midst of load shedding. So apologies for the birds singing in the background. So where was I? So yeah, so the thing is, you really need to sit down and think, what is it that you want in terms of success, right? Now, success means anything. It means whether you are studying, whether you're working, there's a number of things it means, okay? And also, effort that you put in is the effort that you are going to get out. Do not expect to put in a half-baked effort and expect great results. Not going to work. Okay, it's not going to work. So that is my words of advice to you. Take it, throw it in the trash can. It really does not make a difference to my life because this is for you in your journey. I have invested a lot of time, effort, and energy in terms of going over and above what I'm actually required to do. I even pitched to do a workshop to assist you guys in the certain gaps that you've explained to me, and I managed to get approval for it. So I go over and above. You have got to meet me halfway in terms of this. It is disappointing because if you had sent the things through tomorrow, it would have not been part of the recording, which means then we would it would have to fall away, or next week we would then have to look at it, which we should actually be looking at it this week. Okay, so enough of that and my 2 cents worth of advice. As I say, it's something that you can take it, don't take it. Once again, quality. Yes, I expect quality. Don't ever think that in terms of it's too high of an expectation. PR3, there should be no spellings. If you look at this document on the screen, situational analysis, so the word situational is spelled wrong. But anyway, let us progress through this, guys. I'm not scolding you. I'm giving you words of advice. This is for your own benefit. And one day you may be in a job and you're going to think of me and realize what I'm doing now is pushing you beyond your boundaries. Because remember, all homework that you're given has absolute equal importance as to the next. No one is less important than the other. It doesn't mean it's recorded lectures. You have leeway in terms of sending it 2 days later, right? And the fact that you said you were going to send it Thursday, and Bali, when I spoke to you, you said you don't have lectures. The only lectures you had today was PR3. So that means it would have been the entire day that you guys would have worked on this 2 reflective questions and sent it through only tomorrow. That is not acceptable for me. It's really, really disappointing. And I think you guys are not getting that. But anyway, right. So in terms of the peer review, which you are also going to have further exercises to do. So giving you a heads up, apart from the ones that you've done, reflection 1, reflection 2, there is a reflection 3, which we covered yesterday, which will go back. And there are other reflections and homework to be done. So student peer review. Mbali, you actually assessed Nipo's presentation in terms of the Virgin Atlantic presentation. Under situational analysis, you said acceptable effort and standard of work. You need to also explain why you think it's acceptable effort and standard of work. Nipo included the basic information that was required, right? And he has covered all of the 4 W's in the H, or whatever the case may be. Please write out in full. I'm using shortened version, 5 W's in H. But you need to give an explanation, because if you just say acceptable effort and standard of work, I'm not 100% sure where your thinking is at and why you have indicated that is the answer that you've put in. Under objectives, you say minimal effort. You could have expanded a bit more and said the effort was minimal because the objectives were not written smartly, or it could be that unacceptable if the objectives were not written smartly, or whatever. Target audience, when we say, guys, we're not telling you to tell us what's in the rubric. I'm not laughing at you. When you say target audience did not follow the rubric, I know what the rubric says, right? You tell me why. The peer review is to also help your colleagues learn. So Nipo is not going to learn from this where you say target audience, he didn't follow the rubric. He knows he didn't follow the rubric. Why didn't he follow the rubric? And the next peer review, guys, has got to be different. You are making progress. Well done. Bali, you've made progress in terms of you using the different headings. Well done. However, you need to do it properly. Because if I mark, right, if I'm sitting with your formative assessment 1 and under target audience, I just put there, you get 2 out of 10 and put there did not follow the rubric. Would you be satisfied with that feedback? No, you would not. You would come to me and say, can I elaborate, please? The same for message, did not follow the rubric. Yes, I know the rubric. Activities did not follow the rubric. Evaluation did not follow the rubric, guys. Come on, work with me, work with me. So comments, I honestly don't know how to peer review this because we were told to follow the rubric, but I wasn't able to see the target audience, message, activities, and evaluation part in the presentation. I don't know if we were supposed to include the questions in the presentation as they are not part of the rubric. No. So what you do in Bali, you literally look. So well done on following the steps that were expected as part of the rubric. You did it in Word. Okay, there was a spelling mistake, never mind, right? You followed the steps that I asked. However, what you need to do is when you look at the situational analysis that Nipo has included, does it provide a proper situational analysis of what the situation is, right? If that is the case, then you add it in here that Nipo, although he put in minimal information about the situation analysis, right? He could have expanded on this and this and this. So the reason we do peer review, and I come back to this point, is for Nepo to learn to say, on objectives, he did minimal effort. Why did he do minimal effort? So then when Nepo is looking at this rubric, he's going to say, okay, great. She followed it, I didn't follow it. This is why. The objectives were not written in a smart format. It didn't have a timeline. It's not achievable. It's not attainable, etc. So, Mbali, great work on it. You attempted it, which I am very happy. At least you followed the sort of what can I call it? The template. Now we're going to go to Nepo. Right. So Nepo, you have done a peer review, not on Mbali. You write, you say you've done a peer review on the Virgin Atlantic group presentation that was done by Mbali, and you can put a surname. That is how you would put the heading. So I see, yes, you've put the head, well done. You have put the sections of the peer rubric in, right? So Mbali, situational analysis was well defined. She gave us a breakdown of the situation of who Virgin Atlantic is, not was, and how the COVID-19 pandemic affected them as a company. Okay, so Nepo, you're on the right track. Okay, you are giving an explanation. Just make sure that it is exactly what it says. So when you say it's well defined, you gave us a breakdown of the situation of who Virgin Atlantic was. Just look at what, and guys, your textbook. Remember year 1, 2, and 3. Year 2, you've got the textbook with the B's on it, the handbook. Go and check what is a situational analysis if you are stuck, right? Or I'm not sure if either one of you Googled, how is a peer review supposed to be done on a colleague or a fellow student? Did you maybe Google it? Try things like that. Objectives. Her objectives gave an overview of what Virgin Atlantic's plans were to combat the challenges brought about by the pandemic. They were specific and measurable. Hi, Nebo. Objectives have 5 elements to it. They're specific, they're measurable, they're attainable, they're realistic, and they have a time frame. So did her objectives have all of those 5 elements? Not just specific and measurable. What about the other 3, right? Did she include that or not? Target audience, Mbali was able to identify all Virgin Atlantic's target audiences that were targeted by the pandemic. Nepo, the only thing that's missing here is under situational analysis, whether it was, you find those brackets that I showed you, whether it was well done, poorly done, that also needs to go in here as well, similar to what Mbali did on her side, right? The messages, Mbali was able to identify all the messages Virgin Atlantic wants to convey as an organization during their trying times. Remember, guys, I'm reiterating this for now, probably, I don't know how many times. If you're going to write with errors, right, grammar, spelling, you are going to be marked down in your formative assessment 1. It's not convey, it's convey, right? I'm very cognizant of the fact that in terms of languages, we have different languages, which is our first language. But here in this college, they use English as the first language, right? So one of the guidelines I gave you guys to improve on your writing skills is reading. Don't know if you're doing that, but read. Okay. Activities. She also identified the activities that took place as Virgin Atlantic's went through change as an organization because of the pandemic. That's not written very well. Yeah, but also to identify whether she wrote that well, it was sufficient, it was poorly done. There are matrix or there are words, keywords that's in the rubric that you need to include with your explanation. Evaluation. Her evaluation gave use and understanding of how Virgin Atlantic was able to keep their reputation of being the most reputable airlines while not compromising their quality and customer services. Comments. Mbali's presentation was well done, and you can tell she put in effort into her research on the Virgin Atlantic organization. Yes, Nipo, in terms of the way it's presented, take a page out of Mbali's book, take a page out of her book, is that you will see in the second presentation in terms of reflection. I just said do it on normal slides. Don't put any graphics, don't even put any pictures, nothing. Just put in the information on a PowerPoint slide. I'll present it. I'm not going to penalize you on it. And you'll see exactly what I'm talking about, Nipo. Take a page from Mbali's book. Right, so I'm going to stop sharing on that one. Let's get into the fun stuff now, your reflection and how that went. Right, so what we're going to do now, I am going to share my screen in terms of Nipo, we'll go first with you. Right. So there were two reflections, right? I see that you have done the third one, which was not required, Nipo. So well done in attempting that. Now, when we come to your presentation, right, in terms of the first reflection, remember, Bieneke et al., just to give you a heads up, when you are doing in-text referencing and you are making use of a textbook, right? If I want to double check this reference, Bieneke et al. 2022, it is the textbook of note, right, that we're supposed to use. Just remember, it's Bieneke, comma, right, et al. You put a full stop after that, you put a comma, right? You put a comma and you put a page. If it's one page that you're referring to, you put P dot and you put the page that you extracted it from, 101. If you are using more than one page from the textbook, you use a double P, right? And you would do 101 to 105. I'm just teaching you the right way of referencing, because when you look at the textbook like this, it says Bieneke et al. Yes, this textbook here that we're using, right? This one here, strategic communication. Where would I have gotten that information from? I've got to look through the whole textbook if I'm not sure in terms of this. Now, I just want to look at one thing in terms of give me 2 seconds. Now, Nipo, I've managed to find where you've extracted it from, right? It's actually page extracted it from page 90. But I want to say something to you is that when you are asked to do these reflection exercises, we're not asking you to paraphrase what the author has said. We're asking it to explain in your own words. So you've added first, what is the public sphere? You have said the public sphere is a multi-dimension symbolic space that connects the interests of citizens with the interests of government, right? So what you've done is you've taken, and I want to get to there where it says, so it says here, the public sphere is not simply another institution or subsystem, right? I'm not actually sure where that is from the textbook here. I'm just looking for it now. Okay, I can't really see properly here. So when we're asking you a question, a reflection question, although you're using Bieneke et al., we want things in your own words, right? But in any event, let's go through your reflection that you did. So we wanted you to do the exercise that was on page, let me just get there. Just give me two ticks. Give me 2 ticks. I just want to find it. So the first one was explain the role of communication as a key process within the public sphere, a way to increase the productive power within society, provide everyday examples for each type of power listed in table 4.2. That was the first one. So in Bali, what you're going to be doing right now is you are going to be making notes and you're going to be using the peer review matrix to answer. Remember, when you're saying it's sufficient or it's well done, please provide an explanation from your perception so that your colleague, so that Nipo can actually learn from the work that he's done. So the role of communication as the key process within the sphere. First, what is the public sphere? The public sphere, again, spelling grammar, is a multi-dimensional symbolic space that connects the interest of citizens with the interests of government. The public sphere is not simply another institution or subsystem of society on par with others because it's concerned not only with a single matter, but it's concerned with all. Okay. Through communication in the public sphere, public opinion is generated as political and social forces. The public sphere allows private individuals to debate matters of public interest and achieve a common understanding of collective needs to enable action to achieve those needs. Now, Nipo, I don't know if these are your own words or you've just merely taken it from the textbook. I'm not sure, but as I can say, the public sphere is a multidimensional symbolic. You need to explain things in your own words. Even though you have referenced it, Bieneke et al., it's an idea that Renee Bieneke and the other authors wrote, but you need to write it in your own words so that we can establish that you are understanding what is being put in the textbook. Okay, the role of communication as a way to increase the productive power within society. I am really missing here because the next question on there is a way to increase the productive power within, okay, the role of communication as a way to increase the productive power within society. Communication, debate, public reasoning, and argumentation are the best way to reach decisions that serve the widest interests of people as opposed to the narrow interests, spelling or typo there, of selected groups in society. Okay, and you've basically included everyday examples of form of power. Power over, you've got Julius Malema. Power within, gender/sex equality activist. Power to, trade unions. Power with, school learning institutions. So in Bali, you need to critique those based on your understanding of those four aspects of what everyday examples of power is. And what would be nice if you include examples, if you say school learning institutions example, trade unions example, gender/sex equality activist example, right? So I think that is quite key. Okay. So then reflection B, right? Identify the key types of engagement spaces between government and citizens. What are the advantage and limitations of each type of space for the government, right? For citizens, secondly, and then explain the two meanings of dialogue in the field of strategic communication. Dialogue as communication orientation, dialogue as communication practice. So Nipo, I'm presenting your reflection B, spaces of engagement. Key types of engagement spaces between government and citizen. Engagement spaces can be defined as opportunities, moments, and channels where citizens can act to potentially affect policies, discourse, decision, and relationship which affect their lives and interest. I just want to do this quickly. So Nipa, you need to ask yourself whether it was your own words. I'm sure if I go through it properly, when we have proper lighting here, I'll be able to establish whether those words were your own or it's something that is exactly from the textbook, right? Once again, we were asking for you to give you your explanation in your own words, not from the authors of the textbook, okay? Advantages for each type of space. Research on the effectiveness of the interaction between the local government and the community indicates that although formal spaces for participation are created in the form in BIZOs and public participation forums, they are considered ineffective by communities. Limitations for each of the type of space. Obstacles to engagement are fragmentations. Different agencies and groups are not aware of the efforts made by others. Exclusion, where the voices of some groups are ignored. And polarization, division between us and them, are amplified and exploited. Yeah. So Nipo, this is a direct quote you've taken out. You've taken word for word on page 98. Research on the effectiveness of the interactions between local government and the community indicates that although formal spaces, right, exactly what you've written, for participation are created in the form of imbizos and public participation forums. Now, if I was marking, you would have probably got half a mark or something because you have not written it in your own words. You have not done this exercise properly. I need to be honest because all you did was you copy chunks from the textbook, put it there, put a reference, in-text reference, which you did well, but it's not in your own words. Okay. Obstacles to engagement or fragmentation. Okay, we've read that. Okay, you've done the third one. We're not going to go because in Bali, I've asked her not to do it. So even when you look at the reference, I don't know, Nipo. If you are doing, and here's the thing, we had this discussion the last time. If you are doing the exercises, like the reflection exercises for the sake of it, and you say you're doing it properly in your formative assessment, that I'd like to see, because I'm not convinced that that is going to be the case. But you can prove me otherwise, right? You can prove me wrong. Even your references. I mean, Bienneke, Deline, it's Renee, so it's D.R, comma, right? So this is what you were supposed to do. So without even looking at the reference, I mean, I'm disappointed. I honestly am. This is not what I'm expecting from you, but this is what you are delivering. If you're watching what I'm doing, right? Purvey S, comma, or T, there, you did it right there, okay? Now, even the word strategic, you didn't spell it right. It's strategic, I don't know, Communication South Africa, first edition, Cape Town, and I don't know what is Janine Ludov. This textbook was actually printed by Shumani, that's based in the Republic of South Africa, Parow, Cape Town. I'm not sure who is Janine Ludolf here, right? It was published in South Africa, the Oxford University Press, and then it was printed and bound. So I'm not sure what to say on that one, Nico. I can say that you probably have rushed through this exercise because you needed to get it done, which is fine. It is for your own benefit, not mine. Once again, you're doing this for yourself, not for me. Yes, you're doing it for me, but okay. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to open up Mbali's presentation. I'm going to share that with you. Right. Mbali. So Nipo, thank you for sending that through, but it's not up to standard. It's mainly you've taken quotes from the textbook. So please bear that in mind, that the words, when you know, we can spot it a mile away when things are just being copied from the textbook. It was not your own work, so you didn't do it properly, those exercises, but you did submit it because you had to. This is Mbali's presentation. So Mbali, when Nipo was, I was presenting on behalf of Nipo. I don't know how much of it that you could in the peer rubric, but you're going to do every step of it, and you're going to say whether it was poorly done, well done, and if it was well done, what was the reasoning? Why did you think it was well done? So this is Mbali's work. Nipo, now you are going to do the peer review exercise, and you are going to do the peer review with, you're going to include well done, or it was sufficiently, whatever the words on the peer rubric, you will see that you need to identify which category they fall into. So as you can see, Mbali didn't need to do anything, but she's used a template, which was quite nice, Mbali. Okay, so she's even put an index, reflective exercise 1 and reflective exercise 2. I'm going to present it for her. So reflective exercise 1, she's put the page number down, which I did say put it down, page 92, and it's on social capital, stakeholder engagement, and the public sphere. Right, so Mbali has answered as follows. The role of communication as the key process within the process sphere, right? Let me just make that bigger. Communication, debate, public reasoning, and argumentation are the best way to reach decisions that serve the widest interest of people as opposed to the narrow interests of selected groups in a society. Through communication in the public sphere, public opinion is generated as a political and social force. Government, political parties, media, non-governmental organizations, and other organizations and individuals voice their views in a public sphere. At the heart of this approach, there is a view that any government decisions and ideas can be adjusted based on the informed voices of public opinion, which should guide the government about the matters of interest. Mbali, just a quick one in terms of the in-text references. So although you have written it according to the thought or the idea that you read in the textbook, remember we still have to put the in-text references on it. Okay, let me move to the next slide. The role of communication as a way to increase the productive power within society. Helping people at all levels to communicate empowers them to recognize important issues and find common grounds for action, and builds a sense of identity and participation in order to implement their decisions. Communication approaches are also invaluable for improved coordination and teamwork, to manage development programs, and to gain institutional support. The rise of new mass self-communication via new technologies provides opportunities for non-institutional forms of social movement to gain influence. The new range of digital media tools has led to a profusion of horizontal interactive communication as people have built their own communication channels, such as blogs, podcasts, and wikis. There's a growing use of these networks to distribute content and to add interaction with the audience to traditional media, such as via internet-based news media or cable TV that draws on user-generated content. Now, also here in Mbali, just in terms of the in-text references, although you may have extracted a thought or an idea from the textbook, need in-text referencing. Also, words like cable TV is a bit outdated. We just normally say TV or television. Also, just keep that in mind when you are doing, when you're reading through and you come across words like that. Okay, but it's not wrong. I'm just saying use more. Cable TV is a little bit of an older word. Yes, it's maybe used in the textbook, but we can just use TV. Okay, now examples, everyday examples for each power type, which is also on page 92. Power over. Parents have the power to tell their children when curfew will be. Bosses telling their employees what the allocation time of your lunch and tea time will be. Power within. Someone letting the world know about his/her lifestyle or being. Someone who shows confidence in herself, himself, and not scared to show the world what kind of person he or she is. Power to a person who refuses to go to work because of the unsafe working conditions. A group of employees strike for I'm not sure there's a word missing there, yeah. Power with the LGBTQAIA community, plus having to raise their voices that no one should discriminate them because they are also human. The protects by students at the in NSFAS offices. So NSFAS is all in capitals. The one thing you should have done here in Mbali, this is actually well done, is just to put in like an example where someone who shows confidence in him or herself, scared not to show the world what kind of person he or she is. And you could have just put an example. The one in the parents is fine because we're saying about parents, even bosses. It's well done. This is what we were actually looking for. The application of the theory, not specifically just a name. So yeah, even you see, I also have my glitches and mistakes that I make along the way. So the NASFAS officers, it's all in caps. It's not written like that, right? So also remembering, but well done in this section, Mbali. I thought you captured it quite well, and it showed that you have a proper understanding of that section. So then reflective exercise 2, which you have also done and included, but I think it was on page, it's actually on page 98, but that's fine. I think what you did is you copy the page and it just copied the number, but it's 98, but that's fine. So how is social capital built through communication networks? Social relations, in brackets networks, and their interaction between persons or groups of persons form the basis of social capital. Moreover, trust, norms, and a shared language in these networks form sources of social capital. I'm just not sure why the net has got a hyphen there, but anyway, being connected to others, trust, shared resources, and collective action can be segments of social capital. Social capital creates a network when help is needed, and just as important as the opportunity to help your friends when they need help. As people, I believe that we have to help each other. In my church, we have a program where we feed the homeless people and donate clothes and blankets to keep them warm. Good example. How can social capital be utilized in dealing with social issues? Being active in your neighborhood and getting involved in the groups that have similar interests and connecting others to your community are ways to building social capital. For example, neighbors coming together to talk about gender-based violence and how to solve it when someone is facing it. Building social capital is key to solving issues as gender-based violence and online bullying. Community coming together to fight a common cause on issues they are facing, creating a broader network of relationships makes the community's success more likely. So I'm just looking at something here. Okay. So when we're talking about things like social issue, it's not badly done, Mbali. What we need to do is expand. So building social capital is key to solving issues as gender-based violence and online bullying. How is building social capital key to that? The how part is missing. You said yes, using social capital to build on that, but I think what's missing is that. Okay. I just want to look at something here. So that exercise, sorry, you actually did exercise 3, but I think what is key, and I need to mention it, when we say, how can social capital be utilized in dealing with social issues such as gender-based violence or online bullying? Now, the one thing you've put there is the neighbors coming together to talk about gender-based violence and how to solve it when someone is facing it, right? You could say that it's a support group that you have in your community, but other than that, you haven't indicated, and I haven't looked at Nipo's example as well, but you haven't actually indicated in terms of the how part. And Nipo, I don't know, I'm just going to quickly open yours because, sorry, Mbali, I actually didn't know, but because it was just the 2 reflection activities that I wanted to be done. So that is essentially, just want to go to Mbali's presentation. And that is the end of Mbali's presentation. So Nipo, I hope you've done your peer review on that. What I want to do is I just want to share. So Mbali, you can review Nipo's one on the third reflection that he's done. Okay. So reflection C, I am just a little bit confused here because reflection B is covered. Reflection C was actually the exercise on the page of the bottom of page 101, how social capital is built through communication networks. Here again, we say social capital comes from communication networks. Nipo, that's, yeah, I don't know. I really don't know, because if you've taken that from the textbook, right, it means you haven't understood the work that was covered. That is my assumption. You can correct me if I'm wrong. Now, the second one is, how can social capital be utilized in dealing with social issues? Specifically, they spoke to gender-based violence or online bullying. You say here that I live at a student residency and it helps us. It really helps for us to have a WhatsApp group chat, as it helps us all communicate as a residency, since we all share the same living space. So you haven't actually answered that question, because it was more around gender-based violence and online bullying, and how can social capital be utilized? Okay, it's very simple, right? They gave you very, very simple examples, very serious issues, gender-based violence and online bullying, right? For social capital, a support group, starting a support group, right, within the community, ensuring that it's a safe space for people to come and attend, right? Those, get a counselor, a local counselor who does pro bono work, right? Who's prepared to sit in those support groups, because as individuals, we are not all equipped with the capabilities to help people who are experiencing this, right? Do posters, create awareness on online bullying, right? Gender-based violence, posters on, as a community, right? In terms of what you can do from social capital, is you have a group of people, you go into the town, you have a local printer, right? You have someone in your group who's a graphic designer. They can come up with a poster, and someone can help with the words, creating awareness. What is gender-based violence? What is online bullying? Right? How to avoid issues of so and so and so. Those are instances where social capital can come together and assist. So the other point I want to make is that if you're doing an exercise for the sake of doing it, please don't. Rather, don't submit it. Because, and you need to ask yourself this question, right? And I will give you the answers. And if I'm wrong, please send me a message on the WhatsApp group and say, Kavita, you are absolutely wrong on this. I put my heart and soul in this. Nipo, you gave bare minimum. You rushed through this. There's errors in it. There is just, you've taken chunks from the textbook and you've literally put it in there, put headings and sent it. You couldn't even reference the textbook properly. I'm disappointed. And Bali, on the other hand, if you look at the quality of the work, okay, even leave the fact that she used a PowerPoint template, which I said don't use. It would have been fine if she didn't, but Bali took pride, and I'm not comparing the two. I'm calling a spade in terms of the work that I've received. So in Bali, when you look at her work, she put time and effort. And Bali did not sleep, I can tell you that, because at 11:30, the peer review was in my inbox, which I saw. And very early this morning, when she said to me, listen, she's having issues in recording, she So I said, just email it. I don't want to put additional stress on you guys and insist that it's recorded. But to my point earlier, which I'm going to reiterate, if this was an exam and you needed to submit to an exam, would you have submitted just the PowerPoint and said, sorry, teacher, I could not record this because I had issued with Teams, and 50% of the mark was based on the fact that you could record it? You would have lost 50% of the mark just on that. And Bali took pride in doing the work. Yes, there were many things that were wrong on there, or she didn't do quite right. For example, the in-text referencing in Bali was missing, right? There were spelling and typos here and there, grammar. There were some gaps in Bali's work, but I can tell you, she put a lot of effort into it. Now, Nipo, if you've put extreme amount of effort, I will gladly apologize to you when I see you again, or face-to-face Teams, I'll gladly apologize to you. But please remember something. I've done lecturing for so long, not only from now, I've done it many years back. And the thing that we can spot immediately are things immediately, like Nipo, when I looked at your work, I didn't even need to look at the textbook. Okay, I referred there to double check that what I was saying was true. You took chunks from the textbook and you just put it there. And you put a reference to say, I referenced it. It doesn't show me that you've understood the work. And if you haven't understood the work, we haven't achieved what we were supposed to. So guys, that is all I'm going to say. This is not a scolding. If you feel that I'm harsh, and what was mentioned the other day, that in terms of expectations not being matched, I'm expecting quality. Why am I so hard on you guys? I don't have to. I could just accept this and say, guys, well done. Thank you for submitting. And stop there. Stop right there. What is going to happen when you get to your formative assessment 1? And when I have to be totally blunt and brutal and honest in that assessment, and you get a very poor mark, then you're going to say, I'm unfair. You're not going to like me. And that's okay. It's okay, because if we look at all the submissions of the work done so far, exercises, presentations, right? And the thing is, we keep all of that on file. There's a reason I ask you. Because when I mark your FA1 and you have maybe a 40% or 50%, I'm not saying you're getting that, because you're not going to get that. You're going to do me proud, guys. Is the moderator who looks at this paper says, firstly, why did you give the student this percentage? Are you not being too harsh? And then things that they bring up is, what was the student's attendance like in class? Did they attend every session, whether it was Teams or face-to-face, right? Those are some of the questions they ask, guys. Secondly, the exercises that they were meant to have done, like this reflection exercise, how did they do it? What did they submit? And then I have to provide them with things like this, your work that you've done, and I've gone through and presented. And then the moderator will look at this work and say, right, I completely agree with your mark. So remember, the FA1, it's not me that marks it only. I've mentioned this again. A moderator does it. So as much as I like Nipo and Mbali have told you this before, that you are very close to my heart, and that is why I'm pushing you. If you look at your presentations from starting from the beginning, go and look at it. Do me a favor and go and look at it. So from the very first presentation to what you've been submitting now, and have an honest conversation with yourself. Am I giving my 200% to this exercise? Yes or no? If your answer is no, then there's nothing further you have to say. If it's yes, by all means, come to me. I will not victimize you. I will not scold you. I will not shout you. I've never done that before, right? I will apologize if you could tell me, Kavita, you know what, man, I gave my 500% on this to get it to you. And tell me exactly how. I will gladly apologize and say, I'm sorry. I take my words back. So remember, the reason for me being this tough on you is because I'm expecting quality. I'm expecting professionalism in the work you deliver. I'm expecting a document where there's no spelling, there's no grammar. Because when you go into the working world, and if you're going to deliver work that has got spelling, that has got grammar, that is untidy, or I'm not saying the work is, I'm just giving you examples of what you deliver in the workplace. I will say no more in terms of that. I think I've lectured enough in terms of the why aspect, right? So whatever I'm saying, it comes from a good place, and you may not like it, you may not. But I'm telling you, as lecturers, we can see it immediately once work is submitted. Even your formative assessments. And guys, this is only the first formative assessment you're going to do now. You've got another 2 more, and then you've got a summative. At the end of the year, when you qualify and you get that certificate, you must look back and be proud. That is what graduation day is about, is looking back and saying, you know what? I've earned every piece of this paper and every bit of writing on this paper. I've earned it. Okay? So I'm not going to lecture you anymore, but know that when I'm tough on you guys, I'm not doing it because of the fun of it. I actually don't like it. Yesterday, to make that WhatsApp call, I actually didn't want to, but I had to. Right? So I'm trying to make sure that you guys get the best quality. In terms of teachings, you've learned so much more than the actual syllabus, which you will take throughout your lives. And one day you will be so grateful that Kavita taught us those things that are not even in the textbook, that you're going to use in the real world. So please do it for me. Please make me proud in terms of what you're going to do. Okay? You may not like me right now, but as I said, it's okay. But I'm here for your interest. I am vested in you. I shouldn't be, but I am, because when you're a lecturer, and I explained when I was having a conversation today with Nathan, the academic manager from Santon, he said to me, being a lecturer is you've got to have a vested interest in students, which I have, and he knows that. And we were having a conversation around the workshop that I put forward that I want to have for the two of you, that I'm going to record, because if other students want it, they've got access to it. But I've actually got to sit down and plan, what is it that I want to do in this workshop? And, he supported that decision for me to go ahead and do that workshop. So it wasn't just a yes, go ahead. It was a debate that was held, even with Arcadia peers, in terms of this workshop. And in the end, the decision was taken to we were still debating it today, funny enough. So next week, I'm going to look for availability that doesn't clash with your diaries. It can only be done next week, because this week I am doing exams. So I will look at availability, and I will try and get it done before your formative assessment is actually due. Unfortunately, this week I can't, because I am writing exams, and as I said, I've been recording the sessions because I need to focus on studies, which I am behind on. So, which means, and this is a very good example I'm going to use. I literally, Monday to Sunday, I do not have a day off. It's either I'm working or I'm studying. I'm working or I'm studying. Last weekend, I worked the entire weekend. because I had to record lectures. I had to record them yesterday as well. I had to do that, and then I had my schoolwork, which if I fail writing my exam, effort in is what you get out. So after recording these lectures, I'm going to go back to my books and study through the night because I don't want to fail and I want to pass with a good mark. I'm going in with a good mark because, you know, I did well on my assignments and assessments. So I'm going in with a good mark and I want to end on a good mark. So here's the thing. If you start well, you're going to finish well. Just keep that in mind, guys. So yeah, if you think life is tough, it is tough. It's very tough for me, right? So here we go. Let's carry on. Enough with the lecturing, right? You can send me a voice note if you are upset with me when you listen to this, maybe tomorrow. So yeah, let's go on. Let's move on, right? Let's not harbor on these things where I'm giving you a scolding and not giving you a scolding. I think I'm actually very calm about it. So in terms of lesson 21, we're going to look at the nature of government communications, an overview of government communications in South Africa. Now, you're probably thinking, you consistently see this whole thing. I mean, this chapter has been about government, civil society, and it's just so broad, right? It's government, different stakeholders. Why is there focus on government, right? The reason for it is in South Africa, right, we have our government, local and national government. Now, when you go into the working environment, you're going to work for, there's a couple of areas that you can actually work in. You can actually be an entrepreneur where you run your own business. So you're a small business, right? An SMME, right? You can go into a corporate, a company that's listed on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, like a Nestle or Aspen or any other company, right, for that matter. You may go and work for a non-government organization or a non-profit organization. These are organizations that operate not for profit, and they do work within communities. And then you get a parastatal. So they are government-owned organizations. So if you look at Eskom, Eskom is a parastatal, right? Or you could actually go and work in the government department, right? You could go and work in the Department of Trade and Industry, and then you could be working directly in government. Or you could work in national government or local government in one of the municipalities you could be working. Those are all the areas where you could possibly find employment, or you could be self-employed. Now, one of the things I've said before, is that government has said that the challenges in South Africa are no longer just government's problem. We as a society, civil society, as a nation, have to pull our forces together, our resources all together, and work towards making South Africa a better place. That is ultimately what we want to do. Yes, we have huge challenges, right? If you look at the employment levels, it's extremely high. Unemployment levels, sorry. If you look at the infrastructure in South Africa, okay, we have challenges with people not having clean drinking water. We have other issues, minor niggling issues like potholes. Then we have issues like load shedding. Like now, I'm in load shedding. I've just got to monitor that the battery doesn't die while I'm recording the session, right? Hopefully the electricity will come on in a short while, so I should be okay. There are a myriad or a number of issues and challenges. So what happens is companies that are profitable, like your corporate organizations or your high wealth individuals, will come through and they will invest money into a community. They will invest money in, for example, like ESCOM. So when ESCOM becomes decentralized, remember ESCOM consists of transmission, distribution, and I can't remember the other one right now. Transmission, distribution, and something else. There are three pillars to ESCOM. Now, what's going to happen if that decentralizes means that when each business, transmission, distribution, and the other one, when they are separated, they become separate entities, right? Where they run each business autonomously, where it's not the operating model of each business is not the same, right? You could have someone who's a private power supplier, right? Who then provides, who works in one of the sort of the divisions, right? So you could have different individuals and corporates. That's why corporates have corporate social responsibility or corporate social investment to invest within communities in order to try and bridge the gaps when it comes to some of those challenges, right? So bear that in mind. That is why government is so integral. Even non-government organizations and non-profit organizations, they also partner with government, right? In order to improve the communities, right? The private sector, if you are in pharmaceutical, government has got the Department of Health. They put out legislation and regulation in terms of operating as a pharmaceutical company in South Africa. And same goes for like the Protection of Personal Information Act, which is part of your FA1 that you're doing, right? There's legislation that comes down from government, right? ESCOM is mandated by, or they need to adhere to the guidelines of NERSA, who legislates the increase in the amount of the tariff rate for electricity that we are going to be paying for, right? SARS, Department of Finance. SARS mandates how much as an individual, how much tax you pay. Companies, right? If you're a company, how much tax are you going to be paying? Even as an SMME, if you're an entrepreneur, a small business, right? There's a certain tax bracket that you fall within. So if you look at the way we live and exist, right? Even the consumer price index, if you look at the Reserve Bank governor, right? When he has the interest rates are going to go up, he speaks and says the interest rates are going up. The prime lending rate is going up by 0.5 basis points. That is legislated through national government, and we need to abide by it. Fuel's going up. Okay, fuel now, I heard recently, is going to go down. So it's good news for consumers because the price of petrol is going down. And that impacts businesses that use trucks to deliver their goods and services to other provinces or wherever they need to deliver to, even if it's locally. So that is why government is so integral. Okay, we also look at the civil society issues like 16 days of activism of no violence against women and children. Okay, it is a nationwide imperative. Excuse me. It's a nationwide imperative that has plagued South Africa. So government, sorry, I'm just going to have a sip of my tea. So government, in essence, is not only promoting and issuing guidelines and things like this in terms of that. Okay, companies are doing it internally, creating awareness about gender-based violence. What is it? You know, the kinds of gender-based violence. There are places you can go to get help, right? Cybersecurity breaches in the technological space. That's part of your FA1 as well. Okay, there's laws against that as well, which is legislated and we all have to abide by it, right? Consumer Protection Act. So when you purchase a Samsung phone and when you take it home, you open it, it is broken. You take it back to the store and say you've opened this packaging and the phone was broken, and the company refuses to actually give you back your money or replace the phone, you can then go to the Consumer Protection Act, which is also legislated through government, the laws of the country. The Constitution of the Republic of South Africa is guidelines in terms of our rights, our human rights. Okay, so that is why we've focused specifically, or there's such a prominence in these chapters on dealing with or focusing on government and stakeholder engagement and engaging with government as well. Okay, the nature of government communication. So effective communication is essential to government as it helps promote its mission and helps to achieve its purpose by providing important public services to citizens. So the public services could be infrastructure, good, clean drinking water, electricity, all of those things are public servants, public services that is provided to us. The government communication function differs from the communication by other types of organizations because of the multiplicity. Now you can laugh at me, right? Multiplicity of its stakeholders, diversity of its communication goals, and its political nature. So remember, the ruling party is the ANC, right? And by nature, you have the politicians who are part of the ANC who then want to be in, like they want to be the president of the country. And, you know, the ruling party is prominent in terms of its, how can I say, the makeup in terms of when you look at it in comparison, they are the majority in terms of the political parties. They hold a majority holding in terms of the numbers, right? Okay. A diversity of publics. So people can be categorized. There's a number of categories: non-publics, latent publics, aware publics, active publics. So everyone is a stakeholder of government. So the number of latent, aware, and active publics is larger than in corporates. Okay, you have publics, and this is actually on page 102 of the textbook, right? Now, when you look at the bottom, and I'm not sure I've covered it in the slides, it is covered in the slides, so we'll go through that. Go and have a look at what a non-public is: latent, aware, and active public. Active public could be someone who's part of an activist group, who are very active in terms of ensuring that the marine life is saved, or that corruption, you know, or whatever the case may be, right? You have publics that are aware, but they're not vocal, or they don't do anything, or they're latent publics that just, they don't get involved into anything. A lot of people do not want to get involved because chances are they don't want to get involved in some kind of conflict or whatever the case may be. Take some time and go and have it look examples of what a non-public, latent, aware, and active public is for your understanding. Because like it says, everyone is a stakeholder of government. So the number of latent, aware, and active publics is larger in corporates. When you look at voting, right? Every single person over the age of 16, if I'm not mistaken, who has got an ID can vote, right? So that has an implication in terms of government. They're a stakeholder of the government. Now, when we look at the broad objectives of government communication, there are a number of objectives in terms of communicating, right? Is to strengthen the democratic process. Remember, we live in a democracy, and we want processes to be as democratic as possible in terms of the freedom and the right to be able to vote, right? If you're of a voting age. ensuring governance and accountability. So the thing that we want the most is that we want government to be accountable. We want there to be governance. Now, governance speaks to things of ethics, right? It speaks to corruption. We do not want corruption, because what does corruption do? It takes away from resources. There's things are not done properly. So processes are not done properly. And when there are cases of lack of governance, who is accountable for those breaches? Ensuring government self-presentation through reputation building, right? We all don't want to just by nature dislike the government. But when we look at, for example, aspects of corruption and what has been happening behind the scenes, we get upset because that amount of money that has been swindled through corruption could have been put to better needs or better use, if I can say, to communities, could be invested into communities. It could be invested in small businesses, right? There's so many things that could have been done with that money. Responsiveness to citizens' needs. Now, generally around when it's election time, and this is like a norm that people in society think this, I'm just mentioning it by the way, is that when it comes to the times when it's elections, the political parties will go around and they will say, what is it that they are going to address? What problems or challenges they are going to address? What needs of the citizens are going to be fulfilled? Proper housing and infrastructure, okay? Clean drinking water, the basic needs of citizens of the country, okay? Providing citizens with information about government's activities, policies, and institutions. Okay, so when there's a policy change, right, the Reserve Bank governor will sit with the team, right, and they debate in terms of why the interest rates, the prime lending rate should increase. Why should it be decreased? Okay. Activities. You will see for Human Rights Day, the president, other political representatives went around speaking. They had campaigns, they had activities regarding Human Rights Day. Public education, so around healthcare, informing the public the changes in the healthcare. So the national health insurance is, if you can call it, I'm trying to find the right word for it. It is going to be implemented in terms of providing access of healthcare to all South Africans. And we're speaking about equitable healthcare, right? So the National Health Insurance, if you don't know much, it's been an imperative that is being driven through the Department of Health. And based on the fact that so many people in South Africa do not have equitable access to healthcare, some people in communities have to walk distances in order just to go and get to a clinic for their chronic medication. Go and read about the National Health Initiative, right? And see in your mind whether this is something that's going to be successful or not. Because then it also takes into consideration what happens to medical aids in that instance. Okay, there's a huge debate around it, and government has engaged with stakeholders. They've engaged with the public on this. And then, of course, lastly, nation building. Something you've probably heard in many lectures. I've mentioned nation building is that we want to build our nation, right? The song of Michael Jackson's, and I mentioned it before, heal the world, make it a better place for you, me, and the entire human race. That is what we're trying to do, is that when you look at the poverty, right, in many communities, it saddens me because, you know, we think we live in difficulty, but when you look at the living conditions of people within those communities, where if you don't have clean drinking water, that is like a basic necessity. We open a tap and we automatically have clean drinking water. So think about that in terms of the role government has and the role and the objectives of government communication to all of its stakeholders and the importance around that. Balancing political aims and common good. So government communication should be inherently good policy tool that manifests itself in communication activities in which public administration does not promote the interests of any particular political party. So here is the thing, although we have different fractions or different political parties in South Africa, the aim, like when you are doing a campaign like yesterday was Human Rights Day, is not to go out and promote a particular political party. It is supposed to go out for the greater good of all in terms of Human Rights Day. Why do we have Human Rights Day? How to embrace human rights for every single citizen or resident in the country. 16 days of activism. It's not out there doing a campaign that promotes a political party. It's about the actual thing that we are trying to promote is 16 days of activism, right? Focuses on the interests of affected citizens who need to be informed. So those people in a specific community where they have poor housing or really terrible housing, right? They need to focus and communicate and engage with that community in order for them to be well informed as to next week, this is what's going to be happening. Is the roads going to be built through this area so that they're well aware? Sadly, in South Africa, the efforts of communication practitioners are often hampered by political appointees. Now, political parties, many of them have their own personal agendas. Remember, we spoke about power, right? They want power. So ANC is the ruling party. They sit in a place of power. However, right, in Parliament, when there are different political parties that are seated there that have, and they call them seats. So they will say, this political party A, has 5 seats, right? There's another political party that has 10 seats. The ruling party has X number of seats, and that is based on the votes that have come in and the citizen or residents who voted for a specific political party have gained or garnered a specific amount of votes that gives them favor of a certain number of seats. Okay. The changing nature of interactions between citizens and governments. The expansion of web technologies and the proliferation of digital communication platforms has affected cost, distribution, access to communication and information. So when you look at the technological revolution, and something that I did mention previously in one of the lectures, is go back and read on the technological revolutions. How much do you actually know about the first, second, third, fourth, and fifth industrial revolution? They are, I think, between the industrial revolutions, there's about a decade. It's a gap of a decade before the next industrial revolution and the next and the next. However, COVID-19 pandemic, what it did, it fast-tracked that. The fourth industrial revolution and the fifth industrial revolution, it then fast-tracked that in terms of artificial intelligence, but also if you look at the generation of technologies around that. So we have Teams now, MS Teams. This is being recorded in MS Teams. You have Zoom meetings. So when lockdown, we were in the hard lockdowns, and we could not go to college. We could not go to place of work. We could not visit family members. We used Zoom. we use Teams, we use WhatsApp video calling technologies, any and every kind of technology, digital platform, it expedited the need for communication. So what happened is, because of the expansion of so many web technologies and digital communication platforms, that has now increased the costs, right, and access to information and communication. If anything, access to information should be easier, especially on the net. So I'll give you an example. During COVID-19, when the president addressed the nation, or he had a family meeting to inform the public or citizen and residents of the country that we were moving to another lockdown level, or there were some movements in during the COVID-19 pandemic, you could actually go on, and then after the president has spoken, right, on just say News 24, they would have journalists reporting live, step by step. These were the highlights from the president's address to the nation. And generally the next day, if you went to the it's www.gov.za, I think, but it's a government website or the portal where the presidential state of or the address by the president was then published. You could read up on it. So the influence of internet, the speed of internet, right, connectivity. We now have up to 5G. Also look at 1G, 2G, 3G, 4G, and now we're up to 5G. Okay, if you look at, for example, a country like Zimbabwe, they have limited internet in terms of the speed of internet. They, I think, are up to 3G, if I'm not mistaken, and I stand to be corrected. Okay. Government uses online services and other means to communicate with its citizens, but mainly used as a one-way communication. So if you go through on where the president's address to the nation on COVID-19 or any other specific topic or speech that he's given, you'll find it on the government website, but there isn't a platform. It tells you who the spokesperson or the media contact is, etc. However, there isn't a two-way platform where you can actually just speak to the president and mention how you feel about certain things. I think at one stage during COVID-19, they made use of Twitter to engage and get feedback, but I may be incorrect in that. However, there is no two-way communication. So when you look at, and the electricity has just come on, as you can see. So I will switch the slide off. Okay. So now I am still connected, and what will happen is I'm able to still record. The laptop battery, thankfully, it was quite low. It's now back on charge. So I'm grateful for that. So when we look at social media activism, hashtag fees must fall on page 130. So let me just read this now that we have electricity. In 2015 and 2016, South Africa experienced the largest wave of student protests since the end of apartheid. Now, when was the end of apartheid? In 1994, 1995, right? When we entered democracy, students across the country protested against university fee increases and demanded broader access to higher education and the decolonization of higher education. So it's a departure. The decolonization is basically a departure from dominant Western teaching and learning models. Okay. They also insisted that universities stop the practices of outsourcing support workers such as cleaners and security guards and employ them full-time instead, right? So think about it. Was that fair or not fair? Cleaners and security guards to have them on as permanent employees. The movement is best known for hashtag fees must fall. And I'm sure you would have heard of that somewhere along the line. The movement utilized a viral Twitter campaign and other social media to express opinions and organize marches and demonstrations in major cities. The campaign was characterized by catchy slogans and exponential growth, wide real-time participation, and intense news media coverage. The hashtag Fees Must Fall movement succeeded in engaging the government and had tangible results. It prevented university fee increases in 2016, resulting in government widening financial support to students from low and middle income households. Now, if that doesn't tell you how powerful an activist group is, then I don't know. And this campaign, which was done, I mean, Twitter is anything you post on social media is instant, right? It went viral. They even created their own hashtag, and government had to engage with them. And government had to. Now, remember when we said, you know, about listening, where you can, I think it was on the power aspect where we were talking about listening and also meeting someone halfway in terms of you wanting to succeed for a good outcome. And that ended up with a great outcome. The students actually managed to act as conduits for change. And mind you, when you look at democracy, 1994, I think it's 1995, and this took place in 2015 and 2016. And we went into democracy in 1995. So it shows you, and that goes back to social issues and social change. Remember the woman who could not vote, the woman who could not work, all of that, it speaks to that. It's a common thread. Now, another reflection exercise. Yay! I can probably just imagine Nepo and Mbali your faces. Remember, and remember this. Don't like me now, it's okay. I am doing this for your own good and for your benefit, which you will thank me one day. Yes, I'm expecting quality all the way from here till you finish your PR3. Stick with me. Walk this journey with me. I am walking this journey with you. For whose benefit? Not mine. I've gone and done public relations over and over and over. I've got an international accreditation. Doesn't mean I know everything. There are times where I am wrong, and I will gladly say it. I'm wrong. But I don't need to benefit from this. You do. So now go and just take this exercise. You've done the previous one. So now it's reflection exercise on page 104. Remember what I said? If you're going to do something, do it with 200%. When you sit back and look at the work that you've submitted, ask yourself, have I put in 200% or have I just done 20% and submitted this? If I got feedback that was not so great, was it valid? If it wasn't, come back and say to me, listen, your feedback was not valid. I disagree completely. And I will apologize and say, I take it back. But then explain to me, how is it that you put in your 200%? Right? So we're going back to reflection on page 104. What needs to be done in order to make the government more accessible to poor, rural, or marginalized communities? Remember, we spoke of that example earlier. I spoke on that, I touched on that. When it's the upcoming elections, you find political parties having rallies and going through communities, promising them proper housing, clean drinking water, etc., etc. I'm not saying they're not doing that, but apart from that example that I've used, right? Don't use that example, use something else. Think creatively, right? What needs to be done in order to make the government more accessible to poor, rural, or marginalized communities? Second question, should governments spend more resources on social media communication? If you are saying yes, please do elaborate in terms of why you're thinking. So there's several questions. Well, there's two questions packed in one there. So should governments spend more resources on social media communication? Yes, no, why, and elaborate on that. What are the benefits, and in brackets, if any, of governments using social media? In your opinion, which platforms, and in brackets, for example, Twitter, Instagram, and WhatsApp are the most suitable and why? Now, remember, we are talking about people who are poor, they're in the rural communities, and they are marginalized communities. So what you're going to be doing for me, very same exercise, is your reflection exercise. Okay, you're going to work on that. That's on page 104. I'm just writing it down. Page 104. We're going to call that reflection 1, reflection exercise 1 on page 104. Okay, you're going to do the same approach like you did with yesterday's exercise. You're going to use a PowerPoint format, and you're going to put all the reflection, because this is not the only one you've got to do, by the way. You're going to put your reflection exercise 1. You're going to unpack it. You're going to answer that. It's actually 3 questions, not, it's more than, so it has 2 bullet points, but it has more than 2 questions on it. You're going to unpack that, answer it. And then you're going to go to reflection exercise 2, and you're going to unpack that. Exactly what you did yesterday, which you have both done correctly. Well done on that, I must say. Okay, so that is the first reflection exercise that you're going to do. Let us move on. Right. So an overview of government communication. So what I want to do very quickly is I want to okay. So I'll be back. Let me see. It is recording and I am sharing. Great. So an overview of government communication in South Africa. The South African government has created a set of policies to guide its communication, right? The Government Communication Information Service, which is the GCIS, was established in 1997. Now, it's a portal. Go through to it. If you type in GCIS South Africa or Government Communication Information System South Africa, and you can read up. So if you look at it, it's the late 19th centuries. It's 1997, right? It was established, and government established communication forums with integration, constancy, and coherence within government communication. So if you look at the table on page 105, it's table 4.5 at the top, right? It will give you different kinds of communication structures within the organization, right? So you have the National Government Communicators Forum that has strategic meeting of communicators from national South African government departments. You have Internal Government Communicators Forum, and that is to improve internal communication and the understanding of government priorities by public servants. Provincial Government Communicators Forum, its strategic forum of communicators from provincial government departments, offices of the Premier, and representative of state-owned enterprises. Remember I mentioned earlier, state-owned enterprises, for example, Eskom, that would be a representative from Eskom that would sit on there. There are many state-owned enterprises in South Africa. Go and have a look and see that you can identify which ones. I know which ones there are, but go and research the state-owned enterprises in South Africa and which industries they are, and they're familiar, you know them. District Communicators Forum brings together top communication officials at the level of district, municipalities, as well as community development workers. Local Communicators Forum consists of head of communication of local municipalities. So remember, you have local government, local municipalities, and other South African government-related structures at the local level, including the South African Local Government Association, which is also called SALGA, GCIS, which I've explained, and the Department of Cooperative Government and Traditional Affairs. Now, go through, read through it, make sure you have an understanding. At the bottom of 105, there is the South African Government Communication Policy that stipulates the following guiding principles should be applied by government communication practitioners. So there are guidelines, right, that government communication practitioners need to abide by. And I'm just going to read one or two of them, right? So provide a government communication practitioner should provide the public with timely, accurate, and clear information about government policies, programs, plans, services, initiatives in a non-partisan way, thus making it accountable to the public it serves. Now, there's another one I'm going to read here, and I've mentioned it before. Please go and research it. The South African government has come up with what we call the National Development Plan 2030, right? So identify priorities and communicate these to communities, as well as address the implementation of the National Development Plan and Program of Action. Now, please go and research the National Development Plan 2030. These are a set of priorities that the government has come up with that we need, and its challenges within our country. If you look at poverty alleviation, is one of the pillars within the National Development Plan. And it's a document that says that it's not only in the government who has to address those challenges, right? It is companies within South Africa who are able to do so, right? Individuals, high net wealth individuals who are able to. So it means it's a document that is accessible to all South Africans. Go and download the document when you have a time and read it, because it's integral. If you're going to go into, for example, into government relations, right? It's going to be integral in your company for you to understand what is the National Development Plan all about. Understand the pillars, understand what the document says, you know, in terms of it. So please go and read up on the guiding principles that government communication practitioners need to align or adhere to. And I've just read you two. You can read further. It's at the bottom of page 105. Okay. Despite the excellent policy, communicators often fall short in facilitating the ongoing communication process and linking publics across networks, right? Despite there being a well-designed policy, awareness of best practices and the existence of formal participation spaces, right? So research shows that the engagement and communication practices at the local municipal level leave a lot to be desired, which frequently leads to community discontentment. Now, how many local communities or municipalities? You get eThekwini, there's a whole lot of municipalities. How frustrated are people with their local municipalities? They are very frustrated in some instances. Now, if you look at on page 106, there under 4.6, there's a table there, types of public participation structures and forums at a community level, right? So an Inzimbizo is a key touch point in the public participation process and should include community members, elected public representatives, such as the speaker, a mayor, members of the mayoral committee, and a chairperson of the portfolio committees, ward committees, community development workers. Now, in other instances, remember you get community leaders, right? So that community leader, the ward councillor for that specific community would engage with the community leader. Remember with the whole power aspect that we talked about. And if you rewind back, if you look at communities and the power that they hold a lot of power, right? So a ward councillor just can't walk into a community and have a say without treading cautiously, engaging with a community leader, with certain individuals within the community. That is why it's so important to have an understanding of how the community operates. Okay, not a lot of us do. We think communities are just communities, but they hold a lot of power, right? A lot of power. So go back and have a look at those 4 types of power sort of matrices that we explained, and think about that in terms of how communities operate. Community protests are manifestations of resistance. So in many instances, you'll find communities protesting. Some instances you will find that they block roads completely. Motorists cannot pass through that community. There were a few incidences where there was lack of water and electricity for, I don't know how long, whether it was weeks or 2 weeks or however long, and that community protested. They actually blockaded the road, and motorists could not pass that route because they were protesting against the lack of access to basic services. Okay, so then please read up on that table on page 106, table 4.6. Now, when you look at the community process, which are manifestations of resistance, so they are resisting. So you can read up on that on page 106 at the bottom, I think it's the second half of the page. So issues affecting the effectiveness of participation process, there's 2, 4, 6 bullet points. Please read up on that. Okay, so you can see we don't go through everything in the textbook. There are some aspects that you're going to have to read, and it's actually noted there which sections you need to focus and read on. So please do go and read, because it's an important part of tying in terms of what the lecture consists of, in terms of the material that is in those different sections. Now, in table 4.7, right, there are suggestions for improving government citizens communications at a local level. Remember, there was a question earlier on in your reflection, question 1, page 104, right? Ties into this question. So don't use the text, make reference to what is being said, because we asked if there is a way that government can improve communication at a rural level or marginalized communities, etc. Use of research. So like I've explained a little while about getting to know a community, research is crucial. It's a crucial in the preliminary step in designing communication between government and citizens. So you're not going to just suggest, right, in communities, this is how the government is going to communicate. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach. Make sure you go and apply your research, even if it's to one specific community, right? How can actually government improve on that communication to the citizens or the residents of that community? Use of strategic partnerships. Often what we have is non-government, non-profit organizations who are very well versed with the territory and the community, and they've already partnered with a community leader. That is what we're talking about, strategic partnerships. Enlist the support of strategic partners and intermediaries such as community-based organizations, as they are trusted by communities. Now, if you know anything about communities, a huge aspect of it is trust. If they do not trust a counselor, a ward counselor, if they do not trust specific the government, they will not even be allowed to enter into that community, right? So please take note of that. It is very important. Work with existing inter-organizational infrastructures. The community-based inter-organizational network often serves as the best platform for information dissemination, knowledge building, trust, and social influence. Remember, if the people of that community don't trust the government based on the empty promises perhaps they've made, and there is trust with the local non-profit organization, right? The government can actually leverage that non-government organization. Leverage the capital that comes from interpersonal networks. It is important to understand who the opinion leaders in the community are. Remember what I said, community leaders, the opinion leaders, other people listen to, right? Personal networks of community members can change. No, personal networks of community members can be used effectively to disseminate information and thereby initiating change. Invest in modes of communication preferred by the target audience. Know which communication channels and touch points are preferred by the community and put resources into utilizing these channels. And you can continue through to the rest of the chapter where there is a closing case study. In the conclusion aspect, you can gain a little bit more insight in terms of what we've discussed, right? So the complexity of social problems today requires new approaches to governing and governance. Government must engage with civil society in a meaningful way, not one-way communication, right? Two-way communication. To foster a well-functioning society, democratic governments need to tap into productive power within society to build social capital through stakeholder engagement by enhancing collaborative spaces and strengthening communication networks within civil society. For effective engagement, the government must refine the existing communication approaches by applying dialogical orientation and the principle of transparency while interacting with citizens. Now, there is a case study, the one I mentioned now, the closing case study, which is on page 107. Okay, you're going to read it. It's about Bonnievale, the small farming community within, well, it's 200 kilometers from Cape Town. You can read it and understand in terms of how social capital was able to mobilize Bonnievale to build a school. Now that is pretty impactful. I'm not going to read that through to you. You need to read it on your own and ensure that you have an understanding of how social change took place from this. Okay, so the other thing you're going to do is on page 108, there's an exercise there on the Bonneville community. So just below, so the case study is at the bottom of 107. It says closing case study, how social capital was mobilized in Bonneville to build a school. That case study runs through to the top of page 108. Just below that, you've got 3 questions. Okay, I'm writing it down so that I can easily remember. There are 3 questions. What resources did Bonneville community and the DHET each contribute to achieve the outcome? Explain how the collaboration of a less powerful group, namely the community, with a more powerful actor, in brackets DHET, led to the scaling up of the community's social capital. Thirdly, how does the school further enhance the social capital of the community? This is reflection exercise 2. It is not on the slide. Okay, I'm writing it down. That is exercise 2 that you would need to do. There is a video that I am going to play with for you now, right? Remember, all the videos are tied into, it's the Jake's Girl technical story. I am going to just open the link for you. And stop. Guys, I just need to stop sharing my screen. Go share again. So I don't know why my screen changes color, but anyway.
Because I never were, and
I grew up in Bonneville. Bonneville is very special to me. It's a community of about 9,000 people. It's a rural agricultural economy. So most of the people growing up here live a simple, a beautiful life, but a lot of challenges that are associated with the rural lifestyle.
I was born in Bonneville, grew up on a farm, so I understand the needs of the community. A lot of challenges like alcohol abuse, drug abuse, poverty, and a lot of people haven't gone to school in Bonneville.
I grew up here in Plakaskamp, and growing up here, we were quite exposed from a very young age to alcohol, drugs, conflicts in the house, and not having enough food on the table.
I grew up in Bonneville. I was one of the privileged learners to be able to enroll at the local high school. The rest of the learners had to be transported to neighboring high schools, and that in itself had its own challenges.
In Bonneville, we have a situation where we've got 11 primary schools with about roughly 2,500 children in primary school. We only had one high school with 350 desks. So for decades, between 200 and 300 children every year would drop out at high school stage.
We see people in our community who are hopeless. They can't find jobs because they are not qualified for anything. They do not become entrepreneurs and get told you are not good enough. You're a failure. You're a failure. And how many times do you have to hear that you're a failure before you start believing it? So that really grabbed us by the heart. So we'd had this vision of creating a school, but a totally new type of school, a zero dropout school that would cater for everyone, that would, doesn't matter where you are, whether you've been out of school for whatever reason, you're still more or less at school going age and you're from our community. We welcome you. We want you under our wing. We are going to invest in you until you start believing in yourself.
My background is in early childhood development, and that is part of why I got involved in the project. I then knew that if I can help to build this, that the children coming from my center will one day be able to come here and not just go to a school, but be part of something that can change their lives forever. The first meeting was in 2016, where a group of 15 people got together. We planned, we prayed, we dreamed, and that is how we actually started this whole venture. We were all from different walks of life. We were different races, different backgrounds, different means of income. Most of us didn't know each other. It was definitely a group that came together with the same passion.
So in Bonnievale and in South Africa, we're sitting with a situation where 6 in every 10 children that start school don't finish matric. So you already start with the situation where 6 in every 10 children feel as if they are worthless and they drop out before they even get to matric. Of those 4 that finish matric, only 1 eventually would go and study further at university level. So 9 in every 10 children in South Africa is in an education system where it doesn't really serve their purpose.
We thought about the curriculum. We spoke to the parents in the community, said, what do you want your kids to learn? We spoke to employers in the community. We said, so what would help you if someone leaves school and come to you? And we realized this should be a mainstream technical school. So learners could become professional engineers one day, they can become architects. Apart from being a mainstream technical school, this is also an agricultural school. Some of the learners struggle even to read and write. And for them, this is also a school of skills. They learn a practical skill, learn to become welders, they learn to become plumbers, handymen and women.
One of the beautiful memories during construction where everybody came together to pick up stones from the rugby field, to take out vineyards. People assisted with hard labor. There were companies contributing financially, others with their machines and services.
Everyone in the community contributed. We had a project where you could donate R2.50 at the local supermarket to donate a brick towards building a school. We really got everyone involved. So whether you had R2.50 to donate a brick or whether you had 2.5 million to build one of the workshops, everyone contributed, and it's everyone's school. All in all, if the government had to build the school, it would probably have set them back about 105 million rand, of which they contributed about 34 million. So the rest was all donations from everyone, our local community to international donors. Everyone just contributed.
The school is being built in phases. The first brick was laid in 2017, around about the 16th of June. Block A, or the administration block, and classrooms was in the first phase. Phase 2, we built the additional classrooms and consumer studies classrooms. Phase 3 was the workshops, and we're planning for phase 4, would be the school hall with additional classrooms to eventually cater for 1,200 kids by 2022.
Jakes Havel Technical High School is a no-fees school. We get most of our ongoing funding from the Western Cape Education Department. While that enables us to appoint a number of teachers, we still require funding to run the school like a private school. The contributions we receive, we spend on appointing additional teachers to keep the class sizes down. We spend that on appointing counselors. Many of our learners need counseling desperately. We also spend a lot of money on transport, on school uniforms, on our feeding scheme.
For most of these children, they come from broken families. The school is a safe haven for them, where they can be able to just play with other children and to get a meal. Because some children go for a day without having a meal, and the school provides that opportunity.
I work with girls on a daily basis where I mentor them. When they with me, it's like a door opening up to their hearts to know that there is someone out there who's interested in them, and that is very special.
This school is extremely special in the sense that we are looking after the kids. I've never in my life enjoyed teaching so much.
I come from a similar background as most of these kids come from. My dad had a serious drinking problem. I didn't have a mom. It was very difficult. but I had a wonderful elder sister. I was quite fortunate to have someone like that to motivate me. Jakes Gerald Technical School plays that role in their lives.
Some days it's a little more difficult because after a weekend, some of these children didn't have a good weekend. They didn't eat enough or something happened at home. And that's why we are not only their teachers, but we are also mentoring them.
I would like to make the analogy of a chess game. So it doesn't matter where you are or what role you play, the pawn eventually has the option to upgrade to a queen.
This school could not be created by one part of the community for another part of the community. No, we all needed the school and we all needed each other. We wanted to create a school that would change the character of our next generation. What we didn't know was that we would be at school first. We would be the ones who would go through the process of character formation. Seeing the miraculous happening, that was amazing. I mean, I think we are all changed for life.
We have an opportunity here in Bonnievale to create a shining example for the rest of the country. We've got money to fund 70% of the project, but we need another 8 million. That would enable us to complete all the construction of phase 4 and be ready for 1,200 learners in 3 years' time. If you partner with us, we have the opportunity not only to change this generation, but to have a massive impact on the generations to come.
Every day I say, my child, there is your school. One day, when you go to high school, you shall go to Jakes Gerald.
Okay, so quite a heartfelt video. Whenever I've watched that video, it's always given me goosebumps because it is such an unbelievable story. That I mean, that goes to exactly what we've been talking about in terms of nation building. I mean, the impact in one community is just unbelievable, unbelievable. And also something just to bear in mind. So that should give you quite a bit of context in terms of your reflection exercise 2. It's not written as reflection exercise in your textbook, but you can label it reflection exercise 2. And to make it easier to identify, you can just mention Bonnievale, then we know that we're talking about that specific exercise. And if you looked or you heard the lady, the teacher, the construction teacher, what she said is that they're not just teaching students, they are mentoring them. So just bear in mind, when that comes through from me, I'm not only teaching and lecturing on this subject, I'm mentoring you. So if you do feel that I'm too hard on you, guys, you're welcome to feel that. But that is exactly what I'm doing, is I'm trying to mentor, guide you, help you through your journey. Right, more exercises. Yeah, no, it's actually the same one, guys. It's the exercise on 107 and 108, okay? Then, furthermore, after you did the Bonnievale one, there is, below those questions on page 108, there is activity 1 and activity 2 on a page 108, okay? So what I'm going to do is, when I'm done, I'm going to reiterate exactly what we need to do for homework. What you're going to be doing is you're going to be receiving this link tonight of the video. So once I'm done recording, downloading, uploading to YouTube, to my channel, I'm going to share it via WhatsApp, and Nathan will then have them uploaded on Core Campus, but you'll have the direct link on WhatsApp. So when you get up, if you are asleep by the time I send it, when you get up in the morning, it's going to be in your WhatsApp group chat. So bear in mind, I'm not sure how many or whether you have class tomorrow, right? I know that you don't have class at 10:30, right? Up until 15:20, because the old curriculum, we dropped away PR3, the old one, and we've brought forward. So I know that you are available from 10:30 to 15:20, and prior to that, I'm not sure, at 8:15 if you've got a class. So you basically have, right, the whole day, right? I would like for you to send through the work by at least 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, which is Thursday. So in that time we have class. There are exercises that need to be done. You will be doing it on a PowerPoint presentation. So if I can ask for you to send everything back to me at 3 p.m. Tomorrow is Thursday, the 23rd of March. There's more exercises, but I think as we go along, we will discuss it. Okay, so moving on to lesson 28, and we are not too far away, so there's not too much more. So the nature of government communication, we are continuing. Okay, so now this one is actually, sorry, I actually went ahead of of what needed to be done. So class activity 1, so you'll see on page 108 is an activity 1 and activity 2. You would read through the activity on page 108. We don't have groups, so you're going to do them individually, and you'll see the time allocated to do it is 25 minutes. You have actually more time, right? And then you've got to put together your answers. So in Bali and Nipo, you can do this individually. You're not going to do it in a group, because in either case, in any event, you would have had to work as a team and get one spokesperson. But in this case, we're actually going to have each one of you present your own work. Then activity 2 is, once the activity is completed, right, you've got to do, and then you've actually got to put together as part of the presentation your answers in terms of how you've answered it. And if you look at the second to last sentence and the last sentence in the second paragraph, students to complete peer rubric where they will be assessed by the lecturer and the rest of the class. So guys, remember these exercises that you're going to do that we are mentioning now, you are going to do peer rubrics for each one. What you can do is, like Nipo and Mbali, you've already created it in Word. You can save your peer rubrics for each exercise in one Word document. So that is when it's sent through to me, once you're done, it's in one Word document, and you just have separate pages with the different peer rubrics. You've already done one Word document, so it's simply copying and pasting the headings on another page and then completing it. So you actually don't have to reinvent the wheel on that one. So remember, once I have presented it, you are going to have to actually then do the peer rubrics on it. Okay, so moving along, we're getting there, hey? Lesson 29. Now, I just want to check. So what I'm going to actually have to do is I'm going to have to reduce this time in terms that I'm giving you to do this, because I still need to include this in tomorrow's recording. okay? Because you would have in lesson 30 presented this. So guys, can I ask you by 2 p.m. It's an hour earlier, 2 p.m. to send me all of your work that you need to be done. Not 3 p.m. because remember I still need to do the recording for the feedback, etc. And that's got to be done. Then even the activity 2, the same thing. So we've actually come to the end of the presentation. I just want to go back. I'm just going to read to you in terms of activity 1. Consider the principles of government communication outlined in the South African government communication policy. From your experience, which of these principles are implemented well and which are not? Second question of activity 1. In your opinion, what are the main challenges in implementing each of these principles? Thirdly, what would be done to overcome these challenges? Then in activity 2, identify an issue in your community that requires government intervention. Apply the steps in table 4.7 to develop a communication plan for the local government that entails community engagement in solving the issue. In your plan, include a selection of engagement spaces that you think are the most suitable for achieving your communication objectives. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I am actually going to take you through, sorry, I don't know why my screen becomes colorful. I don't know. For some reason it does that. Okay, so I'm going to finish the recording now, but let's reiterate so we're on the same page with homework. Right? You're going to listen through the recording and all of that, and what you're going to do, homework, so reflection exercise 1. You go to page 104, right? At the middle of the page, you're going to see reflection, and it says what needs to be done in order to make the government more accessible to the poor, rural or marginalized communities. Should governments spend more resources on social communication? What are the benefits, if any, of governments using social media, in your opinion? And then in your opinion, which platforms, for example, Twitter, Instagram, and WhatsApp are the most suitable and why? So guys, although these 2 bullet points, there's more than one question. Remember, if you say yes, no, please elaborate and expand in terms of that. That is reflection exercise 1. Reflection exercise 2. If you go to page 108, so on page 107 at the bottom is a closing case study, how social change was mobilized in Bonnievale to build a school. There's a case study that goes towards the end, right to the bottom of 107, page 107, and through to the top of page 108. You've got access to the video in your lesson plans. So if you need to play the video, it's recorded here, but if you want to play it separately, you can. Then reflection exercise 2, where it says questions directly below the case study, it says questions. Reflection exercise 2. What resources did the Bonnievale community and DHET each contribute to achieve the outcome? Secondly, explain how the collaboration of a less powerful group, meaning the community, with a more powerful actor, in brackets DHET, led to the scaling up of the community's social capital. Thirdly, how does the school further enhance the social capital of the community? That's the end of reflection exercise 2. Then you've got on page 108, there's a gray block that says activity 1 in the middle of the page. Consider the principles of government communication outlined in the South African government communication policy. There are 3 questions. From your experience, which of these principles are implemented well and which are not? Secondly, in your opinion, what are the main challenges in implementing each of these principles? Thirdly, what could be done to overcome these challenges, right? Then we have got activity 2, which is really activity number 4. It's your 4th activity. Activity 2 says identify an issue in your community that requires government intervention. Guys, please be specific when you're saying there's a challenge or an issue that needs government intervention. Think as well clearly, right, before you answer. Apply the steps in table 4.7, right, to develop a communication plan for the local government that entails community engagement in solving the issue. In your plan, include the selection of engagement spaces that you think are most suitable for achieving your communication objectives. So guys, when you look on page 107 at the top, table 4.7, it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps that you need to follow that is applicable to activity 2 on page 108. Okay. So please go and do that for me in PowerPoint. The deadline for it is 2 p.m. tomorrow. The reason being, as I explained, is that you're going to get the link now. So you may be asleep, you may be awake. As soon as it downloads, it's going to take me about 20, 25, 30 minutes to download and upload to the YouTube channel. It takes a while. This is a longer video, so it's going to take a bit longer. So tomorrow, our class would have been at 10:30 to 13:40. So you actually have time up until 15:20, which your class was originally supposed to end. I would like, right, for this to be done by 2 o'clock and sent to me so I can do the recording and send it to you with feedback. So what I'm expecting is 1 PowerPoint presentation with 4 different exercises in them. Okay, please give it your all. We're going to see tomorrow if anything what I said today you've taken to heart and applied. Okay, you guys are improving, but I need you just to up the pace a little bit, because if we look at the FA1, we're going to blink and then it's time for submission, and then it's too late to fix things that, yeah. So if you can get it recorded on Teams, you can. Otherwise, what you can do, I don't want to put pressure on you guys. Let's leave it for another time. Don't record it. Just do it in a PowerPoint presentation. Mail it to me and let me know once it's mailed, so I can then access it, and then I can do the recording. Like I know this morning, Abali, you sent your presentation way before the time. So I had it already and I started prepping. 2 o'clock cutoff. Try and send it before 2. The earlier you can send it, the better. Then I can record earlier, because I am still studying tomorrow for my exam. So that's it, guys. I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to stop recording, and then I will catch up with you tomorrow in terms of the reflection exercises and the activities and what you have sent through in your presentation. I am going to drop a WhatsApp with all of the exercises and activities that need to be done, together with the timeline. So we've got that on WhatsApp, and we'll take it from there. So I'm going to stop recording now, and I'll chat to you guys tomorrow.